All right. One of the videos was overwritten for Project 4, step between Step 3 and Step 4. So I'm creating Step 4A here to cover that gap. We're just going to create a quick video and go over what needs to be done to create that step and kind of why we're doing it this particular way. So to start off, first we have our bond uh, ticker symbol. We're just taking it from the bonds tab. Maturity date, again, taken from the bonds tab. Duration date, notice the dollar sign, so this is when the portfolio comes due. Years, this is the number of years between the start date of the portfolio and the maturity date of the bond. So this is how many years are left on the bond on the day we start the portfolio. Yield is just the yield that's on the bond that we took out. Future years. Now, this is the number of years between the maturity of the bond and the duration due date of the portfolio. And so, since this particular bond is maturing after the portfolio, on the duration due date, we sell the bond. And what we're trying to do here is find out how much we're going to be able to sell the bond for. Now, if the bond comes due before the maturity date of the portfolio, then you just get your $1,000 plus whatever the last coupon payment is. All right, so our NS yield, we created our NS curve. This is the curve data, and then we created a plot of it. So this is the NS curve. This orange line or red line represents our yield to maturity as maturity moves out. Now the way you interpret this is, let's assume we have a bond that matures in 15 years from today. So its interest rate would be 1.77% if it has the same risk profile as a treasury security. If we want to know what the yield to maturity is when there's only 10 years left on the bond, we move to the left, come over here to the 10-year point, and it should be 1.57. Again, assuming the risk is the exact same as the treasury yield curve, treasuries that we use to create the yield curve. So that's the way you interpret this. So as you look at this, as time moves forward, you actually move to the left. So I started out 20 years, now I'm at 15, 10, et cetera, et cetera. And then when we're only got 3 months left on the bond, we'd expect the yield to maturity to be 0.37%. Now we're assuming there's no changes in the yield curve through all this time. Obviously there would be, but as a best guess, we're just going to say this is the yield curve and let's use it as is. All right, come back to our redeem price. So this is the yield from the yield curve. Here's the equation that we're applying, and we're using the number of years left on the bond. So if the Merck bond has the same risk profile as a government bond, we would expect 1.53%. Now, its current yield is actually 2.53%. So the spread, the difference in yields between the actual yield of the bond and what we're getting from our treasury yield curve, is the yield spread. In this case, it's 1.6%. This represents the extra interest that has to be paid because Merck is more risky than the federal government. Now our forecast yield, let me double click on this. Here's where we're using our future years. So in this case, we're moving off into the future into 6/21/2021. So this is the maturity date of the bond. At that point in the future, there's 4.53 years left. We apply our NS yield curve associated with it, and we get the interest rate if it was a government quality security. And then what we're doing is we're adding the spread back to it. So here's the H3, which is the yield spread. So what we're saying is that Merck, because it's more risky than a government bond, is always going to be 1.06% in terms of yield higher than what this government yield curve is going to give us. So this is the risk adjustment associated with it. Now, I will say that as you move forward in time, the yield spread decreases. So you can imagine we got Merck bond, it comes due tomorrow. There's a government bond that comes due tomorrow. Because both of them are basically riskless, their yield to maturities are going to be identical. So we're not including in the model the fact that as you move forward in time, the yield spread goes down. There's a different way that you model that, and we're not going to go down that path and increase the complexity of the project. So we're just going to assume that the yield spread stays the same. And you can see we have different yield spreads as we go down here for the different bonds that are associated with it. Now, these bonds down here, you'll see the little dash mark. That's because they're mature before we get to the duration date of the bond. So that's the steps that you go through. Obviously, you'll do it for one of these guys. Make sure you follow where the dollar signs go, and at that point, you'll just drag everything down, and you'll be done. So that's the process. At the beginning of the actual Step 4 video, there's a few comments about a mistake that was in what should have been the Step 4 video. So you can ignore that and just follow this process. All right, thank you very much. I hope you're enjoying the class and the projects. I know they're difficult and kind of time consuming, but they're also very valuable material that you're learning. All right, again, thanks a lot. Hope everything's going well. Goodbye.